Hey YouTube, this is City Prepping. Hope you're having a great Thursday. Wanted to do a quick update video, what's been going on with me lately, some of the unfortunate lessons I've learned on vacation for prepping, and just share a little what's been going on with the garden at the top of the hill. Last week I did not put up a video on my channel, my apologies. I ended up taking a vacation last week with my family, and I had so many plans to prepare a video in advance, and it did not happen. I usually try to release one at least on Friday every week, and just didn't happen. So in this video, I'll kind of share with you some of the painful lessons I learned while I was on vacation in regards to prepping. There was a lot of kind of takeaways that I had that I'm, gladly willing to share with you on this channel. Normally, I don't put my personal life out there too much on the channel, but as I grow the channel and I'm getting to know you, the community, a little better, I'll be sharing a little more and more from time to time about myself, my family. Essentially, our plans were last week, and what we did is we went on a week-long vacation. We ended up buying an RV, a used one, and we're planning on going. We did to, let's see, where did we go? We went to the Sequoia National Park. We went to a place called Lodi. It's outside of Sacramento and outside of San Francisco in that general area. And then we ended up going to Big Sur, Santa Barbara, and then heading back down. Unfortunate event is right before we went on the trip, we bought a used RV. I've owned several RVs in the past, and I've usually been pretty good about spotting issues. And for this one, I completely missed everything. It was a lemon, but it's private partying in California. Buyer beware. There was no returns on it. Ended up within a few days, the refrigerator coolant system completely dumped. If you know anything about that, they're not cheap to replace, so I've now got to deal with that. Within a few days, the microwave went out. And again, I ended up calling the person I bought it from, and again, in California, there's really nothing you could do, and that was pretty much on me for not seeing those issues in advance. So we ended up driving up to the first place we went to was a little town called Visalia, right north of Bakersfield. And in the first night we were there, the air conditioner went out. And I pretty much was at that point, I was like, okay, this is par for the course. This is just what I should expect on this trip. This RV is just going to fall apart on us. We got lucky the next morning. Someone came in and found out it was just a fuse that was loose, and they were able to take care of that for us. It was a pretty easy fix. But it was pretty frustrating. Start off your vacation in extreme heat, not being able to get much sleep. But we ended up taking off and going to Sequoia National Park. If you've never been there before, it is just amazing. Probably one of our favorite national parks we've been to. We got lucky. The last minute before we headed out, there was a cancellation in the park, and we were able to get a spot and put our RV at a campground called Lodgepole. It was in the north part. Absolutely beautiful. Our kids loved it there. It was an experience in and of itself to be able to stay there at nighttime and just camp directly in the park. So from there, we ended up leaving that area, and we were driving to go to Lodi, where we were going to stay for a few days. And while we were in Fresno, we ended up having a tire blowout on our RV. And if you've owned RVs, you understand when you have a tire blowout, that can be a difficult situation to deal with, especially if the tire's under a lot of pressure, which in our case was, and it blew a hole in the side of the RV. At that point, I was just like, okay, what's going to happen next? This thing just keeps throwing us curveballs, and I didn't get any footage or video of it while I was there, dealing with that whole situation because I was so angry. But it ended up teaching me a lot. There's a book I've shared with you on my channel before called the 10X Factor. And what it talks about in the book, and one of the interesting things is it talks about if there's things that you know are going to be a problem and you don't prepare for it and deal with it in advance, that's on you. And that's your problem. If you know you're in a city or an area where you have problems with electricity and you don't buy a home generator, that's your fault. And that was one of those things where I knew if I didn't replace these tires on the RV, which I knew better, I should have, ended up they blew out. It's 100% my fault. And I was only angry and upset with myself because I'm the only one to blame for that. And, it's interesting when we talk about in prepping, getting ready for unexpected events. It's one thing to know something could be a problem and not prepare, and it's another thing to not prepare for unexpected. But, as a prepper, it's one of those things where I'm always reminded of these simple things. I mean, this is kind of a first world problem, right? Going on vacation, having problems. How much more difficult is it going to be, obviously, when there's a potential bigger situation, a grid down scenario? And that's one of the things that drives me to prepping. For me, it's just common sense insurance, more or less. So it was one of those things where we had to deal with the tire situation. We got back on the road, ended up getting to our location late at night. Fortunately, we were able to relax the next couple of days. We got to go to Sacramento, take our kids into the Capitol, show them around, see where the laws are made, see where a lot of the regulations are enforced upon us. And so it was a really unique trip. We got to see some really beautiful things. And as a parent, for those that have traveled with kids, you know how difficult it can be, especially when they're fighting nonstop. You sometimes ask yourself, do they even value this? Do they respect the time and the money and the effort that you're putting into making sure they have a good trip when they complain nonstop? And it was frustrating on a lot of levels. But again, it's one of those things where if you're a parent, you understand. You do it for your children. You love them. You hope they can look back one day and enjoy the experience that you gave them. And that's one of the things that always drives me as a parent. I want the best for my kids, whether they're enjoying it at the moment or not. What we ended up doing is we left Lodi and we went down to Big Sur. And again, Big Sur is one of those places that is just phenomenally beautiful. We pulled in, and I'm not kidding, within 5 minutes of being in the RV park, the police were driving in at these insane speeds, flying down the roads, and they ended up, telling us to get out of the campground. We had to go to the entrance. Turns out there was a shooter on the loose right by our campground. Right when we got there, he was shooting at people. The police ended up coming in and killing him. And again, this was right by our campsite within minutes of getting there. So it was an unfortunate event that it turned out the way it did. The guy was apparently crazy. And so what we did is we, enjoyed it, the time that we had there. We ended up going to the Big Sur beach the next morning. If you've never been there before, it's my wife. I think that's, in her mind, my wife said that's probably one of the most beautiful things she's ever seen. And it truly was. It was just one of those sights you have to see. I encourage you, if you, in your lifetime, you can make it down there, do so. So from Big Sur, we ended up driving down to the next town in Santa Barbara. Our plan was to stay there for the night, get up and head out the next morning. At that point, I was done with the trip. I was ready to go home. I said, let's just drive through the night. We'll get home late. I don't care. I don't think I can do any more of this road trip. So we ended up heading home early on Sunday morning at about, we ended up getting home at about 1 o'clock on Monday morning. Sorry about the noise in the background. I've got a cobra flying right over me. Let me get this real quick. Sorry about that. I went to grab the camera to show you the helicopter flying right over our house, but I ended up hitting the button to turn off the camera. We live right by Pendleton, and so we're constantly either hearing artillery at nighttime or we have helicopters flying over constantly, nonstop. It's the sound of freedom, right? It is great until you have to listen to artillery in the middle of the night, making loud thud noises and your windows rattling all night, the dog getting upset. But yeah, we ended up coming back home, and fortunately, when I came home, I set up a timer on my garden while I was away, and I'm going to do a video on that hopefully tomorrow. I'll show my garden setup. And the garden was in great condition. It's grown a lot. It's got a lot of fruit that's coming in. That's really, really cool. A lot of things grew while I was away. Some rabbits ended up getting into my lettuce and eating that. I've still got to put a fence up. I've been delinquent in getting that up. I've been trying to do that forever. But I'll share a video here shortly on that particular garden irrigation setup that I did. But yeah, I just wanted to give you a quick update on what's been going on with me. Again, it was a really difficult trip heading out for a week and dealing with some of the challenges, but I'm always thankful when I come back home and from lessons I've learned. And again, as a prepper, I can look back and say, okay, always be prepared. There was a lot of things I was not prepared for, and it always encourages me to continue to prepare to do what I do. Obviously, it was a vacation. Things are great, no problems, but imagine if there was an earthquake or if there was fire or some other situation where I didn't have the conveniences at hand. I wasn't ready. I wasn't prepared. How much that would just suck. And I always keep that in the back of my mind. And it's not out of fear, but it's just out of preparation. Again, I live in an area that's very prone to fire, prone to earthquakes, and to not be prepared when you know in advance that it's very likely that something is going to happen, that's really on you. And again, we've even been getting notifications here lately from the power company that they'll start shutting power down this summer whenever the winds kick up. I forget the name of the town that was in Northern California last year that burned to the ground, killed about 86 people because the power companies, their power lines were slapping together, ended up sparking and starting a fire. And they knew about the issue a week before, but they didn't do anything. And so now the companies around here are being proactive, and they're going to shut down the power whenever the winds kick up. So I'm looking at buying a whole house generator, something like a Generac. Looking at solar options for power backup, but I just want to be prepared so when they do inevitably shut the power off, I'm not caught off guard by that. But yeah, I'd love to hear your feedback. I always curious to hear what the community, what experiences they've had. I'm sure you've been on vacation, had some things come up, and kind of some of your takeaways from that. But again, things have been going really well. I'm really excited for this summer to continue to create videos. I've got a lot lined up. As always, if you have feedback or thoughts or things you want to see in the upcoming videos, please post those in the comments section below. If you enjoy the video, click on the like button, and as always, be safe out there. There you go, Sima. Say hi. Gotta wait for the camera. I got a video on.